The horizon has always held a quiet, irresistible pull for those who dare to look beyond their familiar surroundings. There is a certain stillness in the early morning, when the world is veiled in mist and the first hints of light stretch across the land, that invites contemplation. It is in these moments of subtle wonder that the heart begins to wander toward places unseen, toward lands that have remained untouched by human footsteps. In the soft hush of dawn, one can almost feel the whisper of distant mountains, the call of oceans that roll endlessly, and the silent mystery of forests whose depths seem to hum with secrets. These are the thresholds of exploration, where the known gently dissolves into the unknown. Throughout history, humans have been drawn to these quiet edges. It is not merely the pursuit of knowledge that beckons, but the quiet thrill of discovery, the poetic allure of a path no one has yet walked. From the earliest sailors who pushed fragile boats into the fog-laden seas, to caravans tracing invisible trails across vast deserts, there has always been a subtle tension between the comfort of home and the magnetic pull of uncharted territories. One can imagine the soft creak of wooden hulls, the gentle rustle of tents pitched beneath star-strewn skies, the hushed conversations of explorers sharing stories by firelight. Even in these early journeys, there exists a delicate dance between familiarity and mystery, a rhythm that invites the mind to wander with gentle curiosity. The allure of the unknown is not solely external. It is mirrored within the human spirit. Just as an explorer peers across a vast ocean or into a shadowed valley, so too does the mind trace the outlines of possibilities that lie beyond immediate perception. There is a calming, almost meditative quality in allowing oneself to drift along these imagined pathways, guided by the soft glow of curiosity rather than the harsh light of certainty. In this way, the story of exploration becomes as much about inner landscapes as it is about the outer world. One can feel the heartbeat of history, the accumulated hopes and fears of those who ventured forth, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that even in their absence, the horizon still whispers to those who listen. We may picture a gentle sunrise over misted mountains, where each peak hides stories of travelers long gone, or the slow, rolling waves of distant seas, each crest perhaps hiding the memory of a ship's voyage through uncharted waters. There is a paradoxical comfort in imagining these places. While they are unknown, they are not threatening, but rather inviting, like an unspoken promise of gentle adventure. Every rustling leaf, every soft wave against a hull, every faint trail in the sand carries the echo of human curiosity and the timeless urge to explore. The quiet contrast between what is seen and what is imagined keeps the mind engaged, offering a delicate balance between intrigue and serenity. Even the simplest journeys, such as those into nearby forests or along winding rivers, echo the larger patterns of exploration. The feeling of stepping into spaces where shadows lengthen and light bends in unexpected ways mirrors the grander expeditions into continents and oceans. One begins to understand the subtle art of observation, the patience required to notice small shifts in the environment, and the sense of wonder that arises when the familiar suddenly gives way to the unknown. It is this gentle rhythm between careful attention and drifting imagination that forms the heart of every expedition worth retelling. And so, as the mind begins to trace these whispering horizons, we are invited to embark on a journey through time and space, across the vast canvas of human curiosity. We will move from the earliest voyages of discovery to the most enigmatic expeditions that brushed against the edges of mystery itself. We will encounter explorers who traced silent oceans, who wandered through shadowed jungles, and who ascended mountains where the clouds seem almost tangible. In every story, there's a quiet tension, a subtle contrast between light and shadow, between the known and the unknown, a balance that calms as much as it excites. This is not a tale of haste or danger, but of gentle observation and reflective wonder. Each expedition we will recount is an invitation to slow the mind, to imagine the footsteps of those who ventured into realms beyond immediate comprehension, and to feel, in a quiet way, the pulse of history itself. With every turning page, with every imagined step across an unseen horizon, the listener drifts further into both knowledge and mystery, guided by the soft cadence of narration and the tender rhythm of historical reflection. In this space between certainty and speculation, between reality and imagination, the mind finds both comfort and fascination. By opening our journey with the whispering horizons of possibility, we set the tone for the adventures that follow. The world, vast and filled with secrets, is not a place of fear but of gentle wonder. Each moment of discovery, each subtle observation, reminds us that exploration is as much about listening as it is about seeing, as much about feeling the silence as it is about witnessing the spectacle. And as we take the first steps into these strange, yet familiar landscapes, we are gently guided toward the stories that will unfold, stories that balance history and mystery in a way that calms the mind and sparks quiet curiosity. Long before detailed maps and navigational instruments guided explorers, the world was a place both familiar and immeasurably vast. The edges of known lands were marked not by lines or coordinates, but by the imagination, by stories whispered around flickering fires, and by the cautious footsteps of those who dared to wander. In those early days, venturing beyond the familiar horizon was not merely an act of travel. It was a gentle surrender to curiosity, an invitation to meet the unknown with quiet courage. The first steps beyond maps carried both awe and uncertainty, as each trail, river, and coastline promised discoveries that were at once wondrous and fragile, like the soft unfolding of a dream. One can imagine the earliest voyagers, their boats tied to the shore at dawn, masts creaking in the morning breeze, eyes scanning the faint shimmer of a horizon yet unexplored. These adventurers were guided not by precise instruments but by observation, the flight of birds, the color of the waves, the whisper of wind against sails. Across deserts, caravans moved with a similar quiet determination, following ancient tracks that often disappeared beneath endless sands, guided by memory, intuition, and the soft murmurs of the landscape. In every case, the unknown was not something to fear, but a gentle companion, a rhythm that drew them forward with curiosity rather than urgency. There's a certain poetry in these earliest journeys. Explorers recorded what they saw in soft ink on fragile parchment, their words echoing with both precision and wonder. A coastline might be described not just in distance or direction, but in the play of sunlight on cliffs, the smell of salt in the air, the subtle patterns of birds wheeling above. Deserts were painted with quiet observation, the shifting hues of sand, the distant silhouette of an oasis, the faint hum of wind through dunes. Even without modern instruments, these travelers captured the essence of their journeys, conveying a sense of both geography and quiet reverence for the lands they touched. The first steps beyond maps were also marked by encounters with other humans, whose lives had remained largely untouched by distant travelers. Villages along rivers, traders at desert crossroads, and fishermen on remote shores offered glimpses into worlds that seemed both familiar and strangely distant. The gentle exchange of knowledge, stories, and small gifts bridged cultural divides, creating fleeting connections across vast spaces. In these moments, the unknown was humanized, softened by conversation, laughter, and the quiet rituals of everyday life. Explorers came to understand that mystery was not solely a matter of geography, but of culture, perception, and the subtle layers of human experience. Even in these early expeditions, the unexpected often appeared. A sudden fog might cloak a coastline in mystery, or an uncharted river might divide the land in ways that no one anticipated. The soft uncertainty of these moments became part of the journey's rhythm, a reminder that exploration was as much about attentiveness and patience as it was about reaching distant destinations. These subtle challenges were rarely framed as danger. Rather, they invited mindfulness, a deep awareness of each step, each gust of wind, each flicker of light. In embracing the unknown, explorers honed a quiet resilience, a capacity to remain calm and observant in landscapes that shifted beneath their feet. There is also a timeless sense of wonder embedded in the first steps beyond maps. Imagine a sailor tracing the curve of an unseen coast, or a desert traveler watching mirages shimmer under a gentle sun. Each discovery, however small, was an affirmation of the human impulse to reach beyond comfort. These journeys were measured not by speed or conquest, but by the accumulation of quiet impressions, the gentle tilt of a mountain, the whisper of reeds along a riverbank, the distant laughter of children in an unknown village. In this way, the unknown was experienced as a tapestry of subtle sensory details, a gentle mosaic that unfolded with patience and curiosity. The contrast between the known and the unknown was never stark, but soft and fluid. Every familiar path led to an unfamiliar bend. Every familiar face hinted at broader connections. This delicate interplay between certainty and mystery provided a gentle tension, keeping the mind engaged while allowing the body and spirit to move in quiet harmony with the environment. Observations of weather, wildlife, and landscape became tools not only for survival, but for understanding the world in a holistic, reflective way. The first steps beyond maps were thus exercises in both navigation and contemplation, combining practical skill with quiet wonder. From these humble beginnings arose patterns that would shape centuries of exploration. Voyages across oceans, deserts, and mountains gradually build a network of knowledge, each new journey layering upon the last. Early explorers often returned with journals filled with soft sketches and meticulous notes, capturing not only landmarks, but also the subtle rhythms of life in distant lands. Their words carry a calm fascination, an almost meditative attention to the gentle unfolding of geography and culture. For those who followed, these accounts became invitations rather than directives, guiding subsequent travelers with both fact and inspiration. It is worth noting the quiet courage of these first explorers. The unknown, though not terrifying, demanded patience, humility, and attentiveness. They moved through landscapes where a single misstep could lead to disorientation or delay, yet the narrative of their journeys emphasizes wonder over fear. Even when encountering unexpected challenges, a sudden storm at sea, shifting sands in the desert, or a treacherous mountain pass, the explorers' responses were measured, deliberate, and mindful. Their journals and letters often reveal moments of silent reflection, when the mind turned inward to match the vastness of the world outside. In these pauses, the essence of exploration emerges not as conquest, but as gentle companionship with the unknown. By the time we reflect on these earliest journeys, it becomes clear that the first steps beyond maps were as much about imagination as they were about geography. The explorers' eyes, ears, and hearts were attuned to subtle cues: the changing color of water, the flight of unfamiliar birds, the smell of earth after rain. They observed the world not simply to document it, but to experience it fully, with a gentle reverence for both its beauty and its mystery. Each expedition became a meditation, a quiet dialogue between curiosity and careful observation, between human presence and the vast, unfolding landscape. And so, as we trace these initial steps across uncharted lands and open seas, we begin to understand a timeless truth. The unknown is not merely a destination, but a companion. Each horizon, each desert trail, each winding river is a gentle invitation to witness, to ponder, and to imagine. In embracing this quiet invitation, we carry forward the essence of the earliest explorers, learning to move through the world with attentiveness, curiosity, and a soft, abiding sense of wonder. From these first ventures, the tapestry of human exploration is woven, one delicate, whispering step at a time, guiding us toward even greater journeys yet to come. Far to the edges of the known world, where sunlight bends softly over endless ice and snow, the polar regions have always held a quiet, magnetic allure. There's a peculiar stillness in these frozen expanses, a kind of silence that is both profound and meditative. It is a silence that stretches beyond sound, settling into the mind and spirit, inviting reflection on the vastness of the world and the smallness of human presence within it. Explorers venturing into these lands encountered not only the biting cold and shifting ice, but also an almost mystical solitude, a canvas upon which the imagination could gently wander. The polar regions, both Arctic and Antarctic, offered a frontier that was as much psychological as geographical, a place where the quiet stretched infinitely, and every step forward felt like a dialogue with the unknown. In the early days of polar exploration, travelers relied on wooden ships reinforced for ice, sleds pulled by dogs, and navigational tools that demanded patience and precision. Even with these instruments, the terrain remained unpredictable. Glaciers could shift without warning, sea ice could crack beneath the hull of a vessel, and the horizon itself could blur into whiteness. Yet there was a strange beauty in these dangers, an elegance in the way light refracted across crystalline ice, in the soft hum of wind sweeping over the frozen expanse, and in the delicate footprints left behind by humans and animals alike. In this contrast between fragility and endurance, the polar regions revealed themselves as places of serene wonder, rather than mere peril. The Arctic, with its long, ghostly winters and fleeting summers, has been a stage for countless stories of perseverance. Early explorers, pushing through the icy waters and snowbound plains, chronicled moments of quiet revelation alongside challenges. They noted the soft glimmer of auroras dancing across the sky, the gentle ripple of waves beneath floating ice, and the distant calls of seals and birds that seemed to echo across the emptiness. These details, recorded in journals and sketches, were more than mere observations. They were meditations on a landscape that defied easy understanding. In the Arctic's vastness, every sound and movement seemed amplified, and yet the overwhelming impression was one of tranquil solitude, a calm that invited reflection on both the natural world and the human spirit. Antarctica, even more remote and inhospitable, presented explorers with an almost otherworldly landscape. Towering ice cliffs, silent valleys, and snowfields stretching endlessly in every direction created a sense of both awe and introspection. Journeys across this frozen continent were slow and deliberate, each step carefully measured, each camp meticulously planned. There were tales of explorers caught in whiteouts, where the boundary between sky and earth vanished, leaving only a uniform, tranquil whiteness. In these moments, the mind was allowed to drift, to imagine the unseen, and to feel a gentle connection to the history of those who had ventured before. The silence of Antarctica became not a threat, but a companion, a space in which the human spirit could quietly converse with nature. Within these frozen landscapes, subtle mysteries often appeared. Strange reflections on ice, sudden changes in weather, and fleeting glimpses of distant landforms prompted wonder and speculation. Diaries from polar explorers are filled with accounts of luminous phenomena, unusual sounds, and even the faint impression of unseen observers. These accounts, while recorded in a calm and measured tone, hint at the layers of unknown that accompany any journey into remote territory. The polar regions, despite being mapped and studied, retained an enigmatic quality, a gentle reminder that the world holds secrets that resist complete comprehension. It is in these understated mysteries that the polar silence exerts its quiet power, captivating the mind without urgency or alarm. The human element in these expeditions also contributes to the serene fascination. Life in extreme cold demands patience, attentiveness, and almost meditative rhythm. Explorers learned to move slowly, to respect the environment, and to observe every subtle change in ice, wind, or snow. Meals were taken quietly, notes were made with care, and moments of reflection were frequent, as the mind absorbed both the challenges and the calm beauty surrounding it. Even in the face of hardship, frostbitten extremities, the monotony of white landscapes, and the isolation of months-long journeys. There was a gentle poetry in survival, a rhythm that blended human endurance with the silent majesty of nature. Polar animals, too, added layers of serene fascination to these journeys. The elegant glide of a polar bear across the ice, the slow march of penguins in the Antarctic, or the distant cry of a snowy owl created a sense of life persisting in harmony with harsh conditions. Explorers often remarked on the quiet dignity of these creatures, observing them without interference, and noting how their behaviors seemed attuned to the rhythms of the frozen world. The interplay between human presence and animal life highlighted the balance of observation and respect, reinforcing the calm, contemplative tone that characterizes the best accounts of polar exploration. Even the logistical aspects of polar expeditions contributed to this reflective cadence. Setting up tents against howling winds, carefully rationing supplies, and navigating across white, unbroken plains required not haste, but patience and mindfulness. Each day was a measured progression, a slow unfolding of experience that allowed the explorers to attune themselves to the subtle signals of the environment. Maps and compasses provided guidance, but intuition and careful observation often proved just as essential. In this way, the act of moving through the polar silence became a meditative practice, a blend of skill, awareness, and wonder. As these expeditions unfolded, journals and letters captured not only the practicalities of survival, but also the poetic essence of the landscapes encountered. Descriptions of endless ice fields, frozen waterfalls, and sunrises reflected through crystalline formations evoke both factual accuracy and reflective imagination. There is a softness in these records, a calm observation of nature's extremities, which allows the reader to feel as if they are walking alongside the explorers, experiencing both the isolation and the subtle beauty of the polar regions. The echoes of their steps, the faint creaking of ice, the whisper of the wind, all contribute to a narrative rhythm that is both engaging and deeply soothing. Through these stories, the polar regions emerge not as hostile wastelands, but as spaces of quiet discovery and gentle mystery. Each expedition, whether successful or marked by hardship, adds a layer of human curiosity to the already vast and silent landscapes. Listeners are invited to witness the interplay between the extremes of nature and the careful perseverance of those who ventured into its midst. It is a world of contrasts, light and shadow, motion and stillness, known and unknown, all experienced through the lens of calm observation and reflective narration. And so, as we leave the polar silence behind, the mind carries with it the echo of vast, empty plains, the soft shimmer of ice in the sunlight, and the quiet pulse of human curiosity. The Arctic and Antarctic, though remote and extreme, remind us that exploration is not always about conquest or danger. It is about presence, observation, and the gentle thrill of encountering the unknown. These frozen expanses, in their silent grandeur, prepare the spirit for the next chapters of strange expeditions, where mountains, jungles, deserts, and oceans await with equal mystery and quiet wonder. High among the mist-laden peaks of distant ranges, where clouds curl softly around jagged cliffs and the sun filters in gentle streaks, lie remnants of human endeavor, both ancient and mysterious. These mountains, standing as silent sentinels over centuries of shifting history, conceal stories that often escape maps and written records. In their shadowed valleys and hidden plateaus, civilizations flourished and faded, leaving traces that invite quiet contemplation. Explorers venturing into these remote heights did more than navigate physical obstacles. They encountered echoes of human ingenuity, resilience, and mystery, discovering cultures that seemed to exist in a delicate balance between the natural world and the imagination. The journey into mountain civilizations begins with a slow ascent, a deliberate movement through trails lined with moss and lichen, where every step is cushioned by soft earth and fallen leaves. Early travelers recorded the gentle patterns of rivers winding through deep gorges, the distant murmur of waterfalls, and the subtle rustle of wildlife that had remained largely untouched by human presence. These observations, written with meticulous care, were imbued with wonder at both the landscape and the societies that had made it their home. In these highlands, the contrast between the permanence of stone structures and the transient lives of those who built them evokes a reflective curiosity, gently coaxing the mind to linger over each detail. Among the most enchanting discoveries were settlements perched on terraces carved into steep slopes, where families cultivated crops in carefully maintained gardens and maintained traditions that seemed immune to the passage of time. The architecture, often blending seamlessly with the natural environment, demonstrated a profound respect for the mountains themselves. Roofs of stone and timber mirrored the shapes of surrounding cliffs, and pathways wound organically with the contours of the land. For explorers, the visual harmony of these settlements inspired both admiration and a sense of calm. It was as if these civilizations had discovered a rhythm of life that resonated with the mountain's own quiet pulse. Yet even as explorers marveled at these visible signs of human ingenuity, many mysteries remained. Some villages seemed abandoned for no recorded reason, their dwellings intact, but their inhabitants vanished into history. Artifacts were left undisturbed, tools and utensils arranged as if their owners had simply stepped away. Inscriptions and carvings hinted at cultural practices, religious ceremonies, and social structures, yet their full meanings were often lost to time. This delicate balance between the known and unknown, between visible evidence and intangible narrative, created a serene tension that invited contemplation rather than alarm. Listeners are gently drawn into a space where history whispers softly and imagination fills the gaps with quiet possibility. Explorers also recorded interactions with remote communities that had endured in isolation. These encounters were often fleeting, yet profoundly impactful, revealing customs, languages, and knowledge systems that had persisted for generations. The contrast between the familiar practices of early travelers and the unique traditions of mountain peoples illuminated the diversity of human experience. Exchanges were typically conducted with care and respect, emphasizing observation over interference. Through these gentle interactions, the explorers' accounts convey both historical insight and a meditative appreciation for the persistence of culture amidst natural isolation. Many mountain civilizations, while rooted in practicality, also carried an aura of the mystical. Sacred groves hidden in secluded valleys, stone circles aligned with celestial events, and shrines built at precarious heights all spoke to a subtle understanding of nature and time. Explorers noted the quiet rituals performed in these spaces, from offerings left on sun-drenched ledges to the hushed chanting that carried softly on the wind. These elements of culture, recorded with calm attentiveness, evoke a sense of serene wonder. They remind listeners that mystery need not be dramatic or frightening. It can exist in the rhythm of daily life, in traditions preserved quietly for centuries. In some regions, the mountains themselves seem to guard secrets. Narrow passes opened suddenly to hidden valleys, and rivers vanished in subterranean tunnels before re-emerging far below. Explorers described the sensation of stepping from light into shadow, from known paths into spaces where sound and perception seemed altered. Within these transitions, a gentle curiosity took hold. The mountains invited careful observation, patience, and humility, and in return offered glimpses of civilizations that had harmonized with their environment in ways that felt almost magical. The delicate interplay of nature and culture created a layered narrative, where history and mystery coexisted peacefully, guiding the imagination without urgency. Even when natural disasters or climatic changes reshaped the landscape, traces of these civilizations remained. Terraces and irrigation channels, though worn by time, still hinted at ingenious adaptations to challenging conditions. Stones displaced by landslides revealed the careful engineering of ancient builders, while abandoned dwellings preserved silent testimony of generations past. Explorers, moving slowly through these spaces, often felt a profound connection to both the people who had lived there and the land itself. This connection, framed in quiet observation rather than action, enhances the meditative quality of the narrative, allowing listeners to drift gently into the layered histories of mountain communities. The act of discovery in these highlands was accompanied by sensory experiences that heightened the sense of wonder. Crisp, cool air, fragrant with alpine flora, mingled with the faint scent of smoke from distant hearths. The sun, moving across jagged peaks, cast shifting patterns of light and shadow, illuminating stone terraces, carved reliefs, and the gentle flow of mountain streams. The ocean has always been a quiet enigma, its vast expanse stretching beyond the horizon, holding mysteries that both soothe and intrigue. There is a serene rhythm in the rise and fall of gentle waves, a hypnotic cadence that seems to echo the heartbeat of the earth itself. Early explorers, setting forth in wooden vessels into waters largely uncharted, experienced this vastness not as a threat, but as a space of calm reflection and subtle wonder. The sea, in its silent enormity, became a labyrinth of both known currents and hidden passages, inviting travelers to move slowly, to observe, and to listen. Every ripple, every swell, every whisper of wind carried hints of unseen worlds lying just beyond perception. The earliest oceanic journeys often began along familiar coasts, gradually extending into waters marked only by conjecture and legend. Sailors relied on the stars, the wind, and the flight of seabirds to guide their paths, learning to interpret subtle signs that hinted at land or concealed shoals. These quiet observations demanded patience, a careful attunement to the natural rhythms of the ocean. Maps were rudimentary, and each voyage required both skill and an openness to uncertainty. In this balance between preparation and the unknown, explorers found a meditative focus, a gentle merging of attention and imagination, where each movement became part of a larger, unfolding story. Hidden islands and reefs, often obscured by mist or distant waves, punctuated these labyrinthine waters. Sailors would encounter landforms that appeared suddenly, as if emerging from a dream, only to vanish behind a curtain of fog. These fleeting glimpses inspired both fascination and caution. Accounts from early explorers often describe the quiet thrill of discovery, the soft sound of waves breaking against unseen shores, the glint of sunlight on rocky outcrops, the distant calls of seabirds circling an unknown island. Each detail was recorded with calm attentiveness, emphasizing observation over haste and cultivating a sense of quiet curiosity in the listener. The ocean's silent labyrinths also included moments of subtle unpredictability. Currents could shift, tides could conceal hidden rocks, and sudden mists could disorient even the most experienced navigators. Yet in these uncertainties lay the gentle rhythm of exploration. Travelers learned to move with the environment rather than against it, to flow with the patterns of wind and water, and to embrace the patience required for careful navigation. In these practices, the ocean offered lessons in mindfulness, urging explorers to notice the small, often overlooked details, the delicate foam along a wave's edge, the whisper of wind across the sail, the fleeting shadow of a fish beneath the surface. These quiet observations transformed each journey into a contemplative experience, blending practical skill with reflective wonder. Encounters with oceanic life further enriched the sense of calm mystery. Schools of fish shimmered beneath the water's surface, dolphins danced along the bow, and distant whales sang haunting, melodic calls that carried across miles of open sea. Explorers often paused to observe these creatures, recording their movements with gentle reverence. In the interplay between human presence and the natural rhythms of the ocean, there was a subtle poetry, a reminder that the labyrinth was not only geographic but ecological, a living network of interwoven paths and interactions. The ocean, in its silence, revealed both beauty and connection, inviting reflection on the delicate balance of life within its depths. Historical accounts also hint at the quiet, unexplained phenomena that can occur within these waters. Strange lights flickering along the horizon, currents that seem to change inexplicably, and islands appearing in some records but not in others created a sense of gentle intrigue. These anomalies were rarely framed as frightening. Instead, they were described with curiosity and careful observation. They reinforced the idea that the ocean's labyrinth was not fully knowable, that there remained subtle layers of mystery waiting to be discovered. Listeners are invited to drift along with these accounts, imagining the soft ebb and flow of hidden channels, the glint of sun on distant waters, and the subtle pull of paths yet untraveled. The act of moving through this labyrinth required quiet discipline. Explorers maintained meticulous journals, noting currents, star positions, and coastal shapes, yet also recorded the sensory impressions that gave life to their journeys. The scent of salt on the air, the feel of mist against skin, the gentle sway of a ship beneath their feet. These moments, infused with calm attention, created a rhythm that echoed the natural pulse of the sea. Each day became a meditation, a dialogue between human presence and the vast, unfolding environment. In this way, the ocean was both teacher and companion, guiding travelers through its silent passages with subtle instruction and quiet wonder. Even in solitude, the ocean offered a sense of companionship. The horizon, seemingly endless, provided a framework for imagination and reflection. Clouds drifting overhead, the shifting patterns of waves, and the soft glimmer of distant stars at night became markers of continuity, gentle reminders that the world extended beyond immediate perception. Explorers often spoke of the sense of being both alone and connected, of moving through a space that was vast yet intimately observed. This duality, the known through careful observation, the unknown through the infinite expanse, formed the essence of the ocean's silent labyrinths. As our minds drift along these waters, we carry with us the quiet lessons of the explorers who moved gently through them. The ocean teaches patience, observation, and reflection. It invites a gentle curiosity that unfolds slowly, like the rise and fall of waves. In this calm expanse, mystery and history merge seamlessly, offering both a sense of presence and an invitation to wander beyond the visible horizon. And as we prepare to leave these waters behind, the mind is subtly guided toward the next chapter of hidden islands and strange landscapes, where human imagination and natural beauty continue to intertwine in quiet wonder. Far beyond familiar coasts, in the gentle sway of open seas, lie islands that seem untouched by the rush of history, places where time itself appears to move with a softer rhythm. These islands, hidden among waves and often shrouded in mist, have long captured the imagination of explorers, sailors, and dreamers alike. Their shores are lined with subtle whispers of life, the soft murmur of lapping waves, the rustle of palm leaves in the breeze, and the faint call of birds whose songs carry across the quiet expanse. In the calm embrace of these landscapes, humans encounter both the tangible traces of past civilizations and the delicate mysteries that remain unsolved. It is a gentle tension, a blending of history and wonder, that invites quiet contemplation. Early explorers often approach these islands with a mixture of curiosity and reverence. Navigating through waters filled with hidden reefs and shifting currents required patience and careful observation. Each arrival was a slow unfolding. The gradual appearance of sandy shores from the horizon, the delicate shimmer of sunlight on shallow bays, and the subtle scent of salt mixed with vegetation. There was no rush, no pressing urgency, only the quiet anticipation of discovery. As their vessels drew nearer, sailors documented not only geography, but also the sensory impressions of the islands, the soft texture of sand beneath their feet, the gentle sway of trees in the wind, and the harmonious rhythm of life that had persisted largely undisturbed. On some islands, explorers encountered signs of human habitation that seemed suspended in time. Small villages, stone pathways, and terraces carved into hillsides suggested lives lived in harmony with the land. The architecture often blended seamlessly with nature, using local materials and forms that mirrored the surrounding environment. Roofs of woven palm or stone echoed the contours of hills, while narrow paths meandered organically through groves of fruit-bearing trees. These settlements, though sometimes abandoned, conveyed a subtle elegance and thoughtfulness, a quiet wisdom embedded in daily life. Explorers approached with gentle curiosity, taking note of each detail without intrusion, allowing the rhythm of these communities to unfold at its own pace. The mysteries of these islands often lingered in the spaces between observation and speculation. Abandoned structures hinted at stories that might never be fully known. Tools, pottery, and ornaments were sometimes left undisturbed, as if the inhabitants had merely stepped away and disappeared into legend. Ancient carvings and inscriptions, though faint and weathered, suggested ceremonial practices, social hierarchies, and traditions that had endured across generations. The subtle contrast between what could be seen and what remained hidden evoked a reflective curiosity. Explorers and their chroniclers often wrote in measured tones, emphasizing the wonder of these discoveries rather than any sense of urgency or alarm. Listeners are drawn gently into these enigmas, imagining the delicate lives that once flourished among the palm trees and rocky outcrops. Natural beauty on these islands also contributed to their sense of timelessness. Soft lagoons mirrored the sky, creating a serene expanse of blue and silver. Flowering plants released gentle fragrances that mingled with the scent of salt water, while the light shifted gradually across sands and cliffs as the sun traced its slow path across the sky. Birds, both familiar and exotic, moved in quiet flocks, calling softly to one another as they traced gentle arcs above the treetops. In the accounts of explorers, these subtle details are recorded with calm attentiveness, allowing listeners to feel as though they're stepping into a tranquil, living painting. The island's charm lies in these quiet interactions of light, color, and life, creating a sense of serenity that invites both imagination and reflection. Even the ecosystems of these islands seemed preserved in delicate balance. Coral reefs, often visible in the shallow waters, shimmered with iridescent hues, sheltering fish and invertebrates in patterns of gentle harmony. Mangrove roots and soft beach vegetation provided both shelter and stability, maintaining the island's quiet equilibrium. Explorers, moving slowly along these shores, observed not only the patterns of human life, but also the rhythms of nature, recording the subtle interdependence of all living things. In these moments, the islands became classrooms of observation, offering lessons in patience, care, and the quiet marvel of life persisting in harmony with its environment. Some islands also held whispers of legend, tales that were passed down by sailors and local inhabitants alike. Stories of vanished peoples, unusual phenomena, and secret coves imbued the landscape with a sense of gentle mystery. A lagoon might be described as reflecting not only sunlight, but the shimmer of forgotten treasures. A grove of trees might hide carvings whose meaning was known only to those who had long since departed. These narratives, often poetic and subdued in tone, emphasize curiosity and reflection rather than fear. Listeners are invited to drift along these islands with a sense of wonder, imagining the interplay of history, legend, and natural beauty. Explorers often found that each island had its own subtle rhythm, a pattern of life and landscape that unfolded slowly over time. Morning light, soft and golden, revealed hidden coves and quiet pathways. Midday heat emphasized the gentle hum of insects, the sway of foliage, and the slow movement of tide over sand. Evening brought shadows that stretched across terraces and cliffs, creating soft contrast between light and dark. In these daily rhythms, travelers discovered a calm meditation, a space where observation merged with reflection. Every detail, no matter how small, contributed to a rich tapestry of sensory experience that deepened the sense of connection to the world. In some cases, islands preserved not only the remnants of past human life, but also artifacts whose origin remained mysterious. Pottery shards, tools, and structures hinted at connections to distant lands or forgotten civilizations. These subtle traces invited quiet speculation. Who had lived here, and why had they moved on? Explorers documented these findings with gentle attention, noting patterns and anomalies without drawing hasty conclusions. The interplay of history and mystery created a reflective atmosphere, encouraging listeners to engage their imagination while remaining grounded in the careful observations of those who ventured first. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a soft glow over these secluded islands, the mind could wander freely through centuries of quiet human presence. The gentle contrast between settled areas and untamed landscapes highlighted both the endurance of human creativity and the subtle mysteries that remained unsolved. Islands where time seemed to stand still became a space of calm curiosity, where history and imagination intertwined seamlessly. Explorers departed with journals and sketches, yet the islands themselves retained an aura of serene enigma, inviting future wanderers to continue the quiet journey of discovery. In this way, the islands between oceans and horizons stand as timeless invitations. They remind us that exploration is as much about observation and reflection as it is about reaching distant shores. Their quiet rhythms, subtle mysteries, and gentle interplay of human and natural history provide an immersive experience, one that encourages mindfulness, curiosity, and peaceful contemplation. And as we leave the soft sands and shimmering lagoons behind, the mind drifts naturally toward the next adventure, into the dense, whispering jungles where the rhythm of life and mystery will continue to unfold in quiet harmony.
Beyond the tranquil shores of distant islands, where sunlight filters softly through thick canopies and the air hums with life, lie jungles that have long preserved secrets beyond human reach. These lush, dense forests stretch endlessly, their layers of green both protective and mysterious, concealing histories, civilizations, and ecosystems that invite slow, reflective exploration. There is a rhythm to the jungle, a gentle cadence in the rustling leaves, the trickle of hidden streams, and the calls of creatures moving quietly beneath the foliage. Explorers who ventured into these verdant realms were met with both wonder and introspection, navigating a world where every shadow, sound, and glimmer of light hinted at stories yet untold. Early travelers into jungle regions approached with caution and reverence, aware that these were spaces where the familiar rules of landscape and time seemed to bend. Paths were seldom straight, and the dense vegetation often obscured both direction and scale. Yet there was a calm allure in this challenge, a meditative unfolding of the environment that encouraged attentiveness and patience. Every step was deliberate, the careful placement of feet to avoid unseen roots, the gentle parting of hanging vines, and the quiet observation of small movements in the undergrowth. In this attentive approach, explorers discovered that the jungle itself guided their journey, offering glimpses of life and history in subtle, almost whispered ways. Within the jungle, hidden civilizations and ancient settlements sometimes emerged as quiet surprises. Stone ruins, moss-covered statues, and eroded temples hinted at societies that had thrived for centuries before fading into obscurity. Terraces carved into hillsides, channels for irrigation, and foundations of dwellings revealed thoughtful planning and ingenuity, even in the most challenging landscapes. Explorers often paused in these spaces, recording details not merely as geographic data but as reflections on human creativity and persistence. There was a soft tension between the permanence of stone and the transience of life, a gentle invitation for the mind to consider the stories embedded in every carving, every pathway, every weathered structure. The jungle itself seemed alive with both guidance and subtle mystery. Sunlight filtering through dense leaves created patterns of shifting light and shadow, revealing glimpses of hidden flowers, small animals, or distant pathways. Birds flitted silently, their songs carrying faintly through the humid air, while insects added soft background hums that blended with the rustling foliage. Explorers learned to move with awareness, attuned to these quiet cues, understanding that the forest communicated in gentle, understated ways. Observation became a practice of mindfulness, each moment a lesson in patience and immersion, where the natural world and human curiosity existed in a harmonious rhythm. Many of the mysteries of the jungle lay in its layering of time. Certain trees, older than human memory, towered above ruins, their roots entwined with stone walls, preserving history even as they reshaped the land. Fallen leaves and drifting seeds created carpets of subtle color and scent, hinting at cycles of life that continued regardless of human presence. Hidden streams whispered the quiet continuity of water, nourishing plants and animals alike. Explorers recognized that the jungle itself was a living archive, a delicate blend of ecological and historical memory that required careful attention to decode. There was a calming beauty in realizing that life and history coexist in patterns that unfold slowly and gently. Encounters with jungle wildlife further deepened the sense of serene fascination. Monkeys swung quietly from branches, small mammals skittered across leaf litter, and colorful birds paused in the canopy, observing the visitors below. Larger creatures, while rare and often distant, left traces in tracks, scat, or subtle markings that explorers interpreted with curiosity and respect. Observing without interference became a guiding principle, reinforcing the calm, meditative rhythm of the journey. Through these interactions, the jungle revealed its complex and interconnected life systems, demonstrating a quiet intelligence in the way species coexisted with each other and the environment. Ancient pathways and concealed temples often led to discoveries of culture and ritual. Carvings depicted scenes of daily life, religious practices, or astronomical observations, hinting at knowledge preserved through centuries. Pottery, tools, and ornaments uncovered among the ruins suggested trade, craftsmanship, and artistic expression, each object a quiet testament to human ingenuity. Explorers documented these findings carefully, emphasizing detail over speculation and allowing the evidence to speak in its own gentle voice. In doing so, they created records that conveyed both historical insight and a reflective appreciation for the lives that had once flourished amidst the dense foliage. The jungle also contained subtle natural phenomena that inspired or in quiet contemplation. Occasional mists would rise from hidden valleys, softening the landscape and creating a dreamlike atmosphere. Rare flowers would bloom in fleeting bursts of color, while gentle rains tapped rhythms on leaves and soil, producing a soothing, meditative cadence. Explorers learned to anticipate and appreciate these moments, realizing that observation itself was a form of participation in the forest's ongoing life. The gentle unpredictability of the jungle became a companion in the journey, offering subtle lessons in attentiveness, patience, and the quiet joy of discovery. Isolation within the jungle often fostered introspection. Travelers, moving slowly through dense undergrowth or along meandering rivers, were confronted with the vastness of the ecosystem and the relative smallness of human presence. Yet this perspective was not intimidating, it was calming. It encouraged reflection on the interconnectedness of life, the continuity of time, and the subtle layers of human history woven into the natural environment. In this space, curiosity and imagination could wander freely, guided by observation rather than urgency, fostering a meditative state that is central to the sleep-friendly narrative style. By the time explorers emerged from these dense jungles, they carried with them both practical knowledge and quiet, reflective insight. The whispers of the forest, the layered histories embedded in stone and soil, and the subtle interactions among living creatures left lasting impressions. Listeners are invited to drift along these stories, imagining the interplay of light and shadow, of life and decay, of human endeavor and natural resilience. The jungle, in its soft complexity, becomes a gentle teacher of mindfulness, curiosity, and serene fascination. It prepares the mind for the next chapter, where deserts, vast and silent, await with their own gentle mysteries and rhythms, ready to continue the journey through history and the unknown.
Beyond the lush greenery of jungles and the gentle sway of hidden islands lies the vast expanse of deserts, landscapes of quiet austerity that have long captivated explorers and dreamers alike. Here, the land stretches endlessly beneath the soft glow of the sun, a sea of sand and stone that seems to breathe with a rhythm all its own. The desert is a place of silence, yet it speaks in subtle ways. In a whisper of wind across dunes, the delicate shift of sand with each passing hour, and the occasional, almost imperceptible movement of hidden creatures. For those who venture into these arid realms, there is a profound sense of stillness, a gentle invitation to slow down, observe, and let the mind wander through both time and imagination. Early travelers into desert regions approached with careful preparation and reflective awareness. Unlike jungles, where life thrived in layered abundance, deserts demanded a sensitivity to minimalism, an attunement to the subtle cues of survival. Sand and stone shaped every step. Shadows indicated time and direction, while distant ridges and mirages provided both guidance and gentle illusion. Explorers quickly learned that patience was essential. Progress was measured not in miles alone, but in the careful reading of wind, light, and terrain. Every movement became an exercise in observation and mindfulness, each footstep part of a slow rhythm in harmony with the expansive stillness around them. Among the first discoveries in deserts were signs of ancient civilizations, often hidden beneath layers of sand and stone. Ruins of temples, settlements, and trade routes hinted at lives that had thrived in environments that now seemed inhospitable. Terraces, wells, and canals revealed ingenious methods of harvesting water and cultivating crops, testimony to human resilience and adaptability. Explorers approached these sites with reverent curiosity, carefully documenting remnants of walls, inscriptions, and tools. There was a quiet contrast in these findings. Structures of permanence stood against a landscape constantly reshaped by wind and time, reminding the mind of the delicate balance between human ingenuity and the relentless forces of nature. The desert's subtle beauty often inspired awe. Dunes rolled like gentle waves frozen in motion, their crests highlighted by soft sunlight in shades of gold and amber. In the early morning, a thin mist could settle over low valleys, muting the landscape and creating a dreamlike sense of calm. As the day progressed, shadows shifted and the heat rippled above sun-baked surfaces, creating illusions of distant water and distant life. Even in apparent emptiness, there was a richness of sensory experience. The coolness of shaded rock, the faint fragrance of desert blooms, the quiet rhythm of small creatures moving unseen beneath the sand. These details were recorded with careful attention by explorers, creating vivid, meditative portraits of a landscape that seemed to exist both in reality and in quiet imagination. Desert animals added another layer to the stillness, their presence often subtle, yet profoundly graceful. Small mammals scuttled under the cover of rocks, reptiles slid silently across sun-warmed sand, and birds occasionally wheeled overhead in wide, deliberate arcs. Explorers noted these movements with fascination, learning to interpret tracks, shadows, and calls as signs of life and adaptation. The desert, though seemingly barren, was teeming with quiet resilience, a network of life moving in harmony with a rhythm far slower and subtler than human perception. Observing these patterns encouraged mindfulness, reinforcing the calm, reflective quality of desert exploration. Many deserts also held quiet mysteries that fueled the imagination. Occasionally, travelers would stumble upon ruins that seemed to emerge out of nowhere, or ancient carvings partially buried by sand that hinted at forgotten histories. Some locations revealed complex patterns of trade, pilgrimage, or ceremony, preserved in remnants of stone pathways and faint etchings. There were also reports of unusual phenomena, shifting dunes that seemed to change overnight, isolated oases that vanished with the heat, or the soft sound of wind carrying echoes across barren plains. These subtle enigmas, described with careful observation rather than alarm, encouraged reflection rather than fear, allowing explorers and listeners alike to wander gently through the mysteries of time and landscape. The desert also offered lessons in resilience and introspection. Days in the arid heat required slow, deliberate movement and a rhythm of rest and awareness. Travelers learned to conserve energy, to observe carefully, and to find small sources of comfort and sustenance amidst the minimalism of the environment. Each day became a meditation on balance, between motion and stillness, shade and sun, emptiness and subtle richness. The quiet expanses, with their sweeping vistas and soft horizons, fostered a reflective mindset, allowing the explorer's journals to capture both factual observations and poetic musings that lingered like a gentle whisper in the mind. Water, the most precious resource, held its own subtle lessons. Oases appeared like mirages, clusters of life offering shade, sustenance, and momentary respite. Streams, when encountered, carried stories of survival and continuity, weaving together ecosystems and human settlements alike. Explorers recorded these features with reverent attention, noting the interplay between scarcity and abundance, permanence and transience. The contrast between barren expanses and lush pockets of life became a metaphor for resilience, patience, and the quiet unfolding of patterns over time. It reinforced the idea that the desert, though austere, is a living archive of both natural and human histories. At night, the desert transformed into a soft, luminous realm. Stars stretched endlessly across clear skies, undisturbed by clouds or city lights. The moon cast gentle silver light over dunes, revealing subtle contours and shadowed valleys. The night air, cooler and fragrant, carried the soft rustle of nocturnal creatures. Explorers often found these evenings to be moments of serene reflection, a space in which the mind could drift gently between the vastness of the desert and the continuity of human endeavor. The quiet majesty of nighttime, framed by constellations that guided countless travelers, offered both comfort and inspiration, a gentle reminder of the slow rhythms that govern both land and life. As explorers moved through these silent whispers, the desert became a place of both learning and meditation. Its sparse beauty and quiet enigmas encouraged careful observation, reflection, and imagination. Listeners are drawn into the rhythm of the dunes, the soft patterns of wind, and the gentle interplay of history and mystery embedded in stone, sand, and sky. The desert stillness serves as a bridge, guiding the mind toward contemplation and anticipation of the next landscapes, where rivers, mountains, and oceans await with equally quiet, layered histories to explore. It is a space where curiosity and serenity coexist, and where every whisper of wind carries both fact and story. Flowing quietly through forests, plains, and mountains, rivers have always carried with them the essence of both life and history. Unlike the stark silence of deserts or the dense whispers of jungles, rivers offer a gentle, constant rhythm, a meditative cadence that guides travelers along their winding paths. Explorers long ago noticed this quality: the soft lapping of water against the riverbank, the faint shimmer of sunlight on rippling surfaces, and the gentle murmur of hidden currents, all inviting a deep, reflective attention. Each river seemed to tell a story, a narrative layered with the movements of the land, the lives of the people along its banks, and the countless generations of flora and fauna that depended on its presence. In this flowing narrative, history and mystery intertwine in subtle, soothing ways. Early explorers approached rivers with both caution and wonder. Maps provided a general sense of direction, but the rivers themselves were living guides, their courses shifting with seasons and floods. Sandbars appeared and disappeared. Small tributaries carved new pathways, and the reflective surface of the water sometimes concealed hidden depths or obstacles. Travelers learned to read these signs, to notice the texture of the current, the color of sediment, and the patterns of wildlife that signaled shallows, deeper pools, or safe crossings. Every observation required patience and gentle attentiveness, transforming the journey into a contemplative experience where each bend in the river offered new possibilities for discovery. Rivers often serve as threads connecting civilizations, both past and present. Along their banks, explorers encountered settlements, some thriving, others long abandoned. Terraces for farming, water wheels, docks, and bridges spoke of ingenious human adaptation to flowing landscapes. Ancient inscriptions and carvings hinted at religious or cultural significance tied to the river itself. These traces suggested that rivers were not only physical pathways, but also symbolic ones, shaping social, spiritual, and economic life over centuries. Observers approached with a calm curiosity, taking note of both the tangible structures and the intangible sense of continuity, feeling the quiet pulse of communities intertwined with the river's own rhythm. The ecological life of rivers adds another layer of fascination. Fish glide beneath the surface, their scales catching fleeting glimmers of sunlight. Birds hover overhead or dip to snatch prey, while mammals come to drink at dawn or dusk. Water plants sway with the gentle current, creating subtle patterns of motion that mirror the river's soft voice. Explorers often pause to record these interactions, observing not just individual species, but the delicate balance of an entire ecosystem. The river, in its slow and steady flow, becomes a teacher of attentiveness and patience, a model of how life persists in harmony with shifting circumstances. Many rivers also carry quiet mysteries, waiting for perceptive eyes to notice them. Occasionally, explorers would stumble upon hidden groves, meandering backwaters, or submerged structures that hinted at ancient settlements now claimed by water. Objects caught in the shallows, pottery, tools, or carved stones, spoke to human lives intertwined with the river, preserved in its memory even as time passed. Some rivers are linked to legends, stories of vanished peoples, mysterious currents, or unexplained phenomena that inspired careful reflection rather than fear. In these subtle mysteries, listeners are invited to drift along the water's surface, imagining histories layered beneath the gentle movement of waves and ripples. The sensory experiences of traveling along a river are both varied and soothing. The soft splash of oars in the early morning, the faint scent of river plants and damp earth, and the shimmering reflection of clouds create a rich tapestry of calm detail. Even the sound of wildlife, a bird call, the rustle of reeds, or the distant croak of a frog, contributes to a meditative rhythm that carries the mind gently along the waterway. Explorers documented these moments meticulously, blending factual observations with poetic reflections, allowing listeners to feel both the passage of time and the gentle unfolding of the river's story. Rivers often lead to unexpected discoveries, connecting remote landscapes and hidden cultures. Tributaries might open into valleys where ancient ruins remain partially concealed by vegetation. Waterways can reveal trade routes that linked distant settlements or sacred spaces used for ritual and contemplation. Explorers noted these discoveries with patient care, emphasizing the quiet revelation over dramatic spectacle. In the interplay between observation and imagination, the river becomes both a guide and a companion, offering subtle hints of history while maintaining an aura of gentle mystery. Seasonal changes further shape the narrative of rivers. In the rainy season, the water swells and moves swiftly, altering familiar paths and creating new channels. In drier months, shallows emerge, revealing stones and debris that had lain hidden. These shifts remind travelers of the river's dynamic nature, its capacity for renewal, and the constant dialogue between stability and change. Observing these patterns, explorers gained insight not only into hydrology, but also into the ways human societies had adapted to and coexisted with the water's gentle power. Each cycle of rise and fall carries both literal and metaphorical lessons, a rhythmic meditation on impermanence and endurance. The banks of rivers often hold layers of history interwoven with legend. Temples and shrines, carved stones, and ceremonial spaces hint at beliefs and practices shaped by the constant presence of flowing water. In some regions, explorers discovered that rivers served as lifelines, connecting distant communities while inspiring myths about creation, fertility, and the passage of time. These quiet cultural traces are recorded with attentive care, emphasizing reflection and continuity rather than conquest. Listeners are invited to imagine the soft ripple of water against these sacred spaces, the gentle sound of human footsteps mingling with the natural song of the river. Traveling a river is an exercise in mindfulness. The slow movement, the necessity of observing currents and surroundings, and the attentiveness required to interpret subtle signs all encourage a state of calm reflection. Explorers often noted the rhythm of daily life along the banks. Fishermen casting lines at dawn, women drawing water for daily chores, children playing in shallow eddies. These moments, though ordinary, acquire a quiet significance when set against the vast, unhurried flow of the river itself. They remind listeners that history is not only found in grand structures or monumental events, but also in the gentle, enduring rhythms of everyday life. By the time explorers leave the river, they carry with them both detailed records and a subtle, lingering sense of calm. The waterways have guided them through landscapes rich in history, alive with natural rhythms, and imbued with mysteries that invite reflection rather than resolution. Listeners, too, are encouraged to drift along these narratives, imagining the soft murmur of water, the light glinting across ripples, and the intertwined lives of humans and nature. Rivers that remember remind us that time flows gently, that history and mystery coexist seamlessly, and that the world's quietest stories often hold the most enduring fascination. High above the valleys, where the air thins and the world seems to pause beneath layers of ice and snow, lie mountains that guard secrets frozen in time. These peaks, often veiled in mist or swirling snow, have long inspired both awe and quiet contemplation. Explorers who ventured into these frigid realms quickly learned that survival required patience, careful observation, and a deep respect for the subtle cues of the environment. Every step across glistening snow, every careful placement on icy rock became a measured act of mindfulness. The mountains themselves seemed alive, whispering tales of human endurance, natural cycles, and ancient mysteries, inviting the mind to slow down and drift along their frozen slopes. The first encounters with high peaks often began at the edge of foothills, where snow gradually softens the landscape and ice begins to coat streams and rocks. Travelers would notice the quiet shift in texture and color, the way sunlight glinted on frost-covered branches, the muted tones of rock beneath snow, and the soft echo of distant avalanches or shifting ice. These subtle observations required calm attentiveness. Explorers recorded the interplay between light and shadow, the delicate patterns etched by frost, and the gentle sounds of wind across icy ridges. In these moments, the mountains revealed themselves not as threats, but as serene teachers of patience and quiet curiosity. Many of the peaks hide evidence of human history long forgotten. Remote monasteries, ancient shelters, and stone pathways carved into cliffs speak of societies that thrived despite harsh conditions. Climbers and travelers recorded these findings with a reverent eye, noting the architectural ingenuity that allowed humans to coexist with such unforgiving landscapes. Terraces built for cultivation, small enclosures for livestock, and carefully constructed shelters demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of both environment and endurance. These traces, often fragile against the relentless forces of ice and snow, provide glimpses into lives lived in harmony with extremes, a quiet testament to resilience and ingenuity. Glaciers and frozen rivers hold their own layered histories. Beneath thick ice, sediments, rocks, and occasionally preserved artifacts speak of both geological and human activity over millennia. Explorers noted the subtle variations in color, texture, and structure, understanding that each crevice or striation told a story of change and continuity. The ice, in its stillness, preserves these stories with patience, offering a slow, measured lesson in the passage of time. Listeners are invited to imagine the soft crackle of ice underfoot, the distant hum of glacial movement, and the delicate interplay between frozen landscapes and enduring history. Wildlife, though sparse in these high elevations, contributes to the serene rhythm of the mountains. Birds adapted to cold and altitude circle on thermals, while small mammals burrow beneath snow for warmth. Occasional sightings of larger creatures, mountain goats, elusive snow leopards, or distant herds, offer fleeting glimpses of life thriving amidst harsh conditions. Explorers learn to move quietly, observing without disturbing, and documenting patterns that revealed subtle adaptations to extreme climates. These encounters emphasize both fragility and resilience, reinforcing the gentle, reflective tone that permeates high-altitude exploration. Some of the most compelling mysteries lie in the peak's inaccessibility. Hidden caves, isolated valleys, and precipitous cliffs often conceal archaeological traces, rare flora, or signs of ancient ritual. Explorers noted these features with care, balancing curiosity with respect for the landscape's delicate balance. Snow and ice can both reveal and obscure, creating shifting pathways and concealed spaces that change with the seasons. This constant transformation invites quiet speculation. What might lie beneath a glacier, inside a hidden crevasse, or the far edge of a ridge? The mountains encourage reflective exploration rather than hurried conclusion, emphasizing wonder over certainty. The sensory experiences of high peaks are subtle yet profound. Cold air carries faint scents of pine, snow, and mineral stone. Sunlight bouncing off ice creates soft glows and gentle reflections. Wind whispers across ridges, sometimes carrying distant echoes of avalanches or the soft murmur of glacial streams. Each detail is recorded with care, forming a meditative backdrop to both human and natural history. Explorers' journals often reflect this attention, blending observation with quiet reflection, allowing listeners to feel immersed in the icy stillness, to drift along with the slow pulse of the peaks. Seasonal cycles shape both the environment and the narrative. Winter brings deep snow and long shadows, concealing much of the terrain while revealing subtle clues in the ice. Spring and summer melt reveal hidden paths, fragile plant life, and streams previously locked beneath frost. These rhythms create a layered story, in which change and continuity coexist. Observers learn to read these cues, understanding the subtle interplay between climate, geography, and human habitation. The mountains themselves become a patient teacher, demonstrating how history and environment intertwine over time, quietly shaping both human and natural landscapes. Cultural and spiritual elements often enrich these frozen heights. Many peaks have long been considered sacred, sites of pilgrimage or meditation. Simple shrines, prayer flags, and carved stones hint at a deep respect for the forces of nature and the immensity of the peaks. Explorers documented these traces with care, noting the gentle interaction between human presence and the formidable environment. There's a meditative rhythm here. The deliberate placement of offerings, the quiet paths of pilgrims, the interplay between faith, endurance, and the natural world. Listeners are invited to imagine these subtle, almost imperceptible gestures of reverence, which add layers of meaning to the silent, icy landscape. The interplay between known paths and hidden mysteries shapes much of the narrative. Visible terraces, shelters, and carvings provide tangible evidence, while concealed caves, shifting glaciers, and snow-laden valleys evoke subtle speculation. This contrast, the tangible and the unknown, creates the quiet tension that drives curiosity without urgency. Explorers move through these spaces with care, balancing observation with imagination. Listeners, following the narrative, are drawn into the soft rhythm of high-altitude exploration, experiencing both factual discovery and gentle mystery simultaneously. By the time explorers descended from these frozen heights, they carried not only records of human ingenuity and natural phenomena, but also a lingering sense of serenity imparted by the peaks themselves. The frozen secrets remain, patiently preserved in snow and ice, waiting for future travelers to observe reflect, and imagine. Listeners are guided through these landscapes with a sense of gentle immersion, feeling the slow, meditative pulse of mountains that have witnessed centuries of life, resilience, and quiet mystery. These high peaks, silent yet eloquent, prepare the mind for the next chapters of exploration. Oceans, deserts, rivers, and forests, where the rhythm of discovery continues to unfold gently, encouraging both curiosity and calm reflection.
Scattered across continents and hidden within forests, deserts, and mountain valleys, lie cities that time has quietly claimed. These forgotten cities, often overgrown, eroded, or partially buried, evoke a gentle tension between the known and the unknown, offering explorers both tangible history and subtle mysteries. Ancient streets, crumbling walls, and silent squares tell stories of daily life, trade, and ritual, yet much remains unsolved. The quiet charm of these cities lies in their ability to suggest human activity without fully revealing it, inviting imagination to wander while keeping curiosity gently suspended. For those willing to observe slowly, every stone, every archway, and every faded inscription provides a meditation on the passage of time and the endurance of human creativity. Early explorers approached these ruins with reverence, often discovering them by following natural landmarks, ancient maps, or the whispers of local legend. Paths to forgotten cities were seldom clear. Explorers navigated through overgrown forests, shifting sands, or rugged mountains, learning to read subtle signs of human presence. Faint carvings on rock faces, scattered pottery, or remnants of old walls hinted at entire communities once thriving. In documenting these discoveries, travelers balanced detailed observation with quiet reflection, understanding that the city itself was a storyteller, offering layers of history in measured, gentle increments rather than immediate revelation. The architecture of forgotten cities is itself a study in patience and ingenuity. Structures are often aligned with natural features, rivers, hills, or sun patterns, revealing a subtle understanding of both environment and human need. Residential areas, marketplaces, and ceremonial spaces demonstrate a blend of functionality and artistry, with carvings, murals, and stonework providing glimpses into cultural priorities and aesthetic sensibilities. Explorers noted the interplay between structure and decay, the resilience of foundations, the erosion of softer materials, and the way nature gradually reclaims human-made spaces. This contrast between permanence and impermanence creates a contemplative rhythm, encouraging listeners to slow their thoughts and drift along the soft cadence of history. Public spaces in these cities reveal patterns of daily life long past. Marketplaces, once bustling with trade, now lie silent, occasionally marked by a fallen artifact or the shadow of a doorway. Temples and ceremonial centers, often weathered or partially collapsed, hint at spiritual practices and communal gatherings that shaped human experience. Streets, though empty, preserve echoes of movement, footprints hardened in clay, stone paths smoothed by generations of travelers, and walls that once echoed with conversation. Explorers carefully documented these features, allowing the subtle narrative of life, labor, and ritual to emerge in measured observation rather than hurried interpretation. Listeners are invited to imagine the gentle rhythms of ancient days, each sound and motion contributing to the quiet pulse of the city. Forgotten cities are often embedded with hidden mysteries that continue to intrigue. Certain structures defy easy explanation, enormous stone blocks arranged with precision, chambers whose purpose remains unclear, and inscriptions that resist translation. Some urban layouts suggest astronomical alignments, secret pathways, or ritualistic symbolism that speak to knowledge both practical and ceremonial. Explorers recorded these anomalies with curiosity tempered by respect, emphasizing the wonder of discovery rather than the need for immediate answers. In this interplay of revealed and concealed, listeners are drawn into a reflective state, where imagination and history coexist in gentle harmony. Natural reclamation adds another layer of intrigue to these cities. Trees grow through walls, vines drape across arches, and moss carpets once polished stones. In deserts, sands partially bury streets and plazas, shifting gradually with wind and time. In jungles, dense vegetation softens corners and conceals structures, revealing glimpses of form only as explorers move carefully through the canopy. Even in mountains, snow and ice can obscure paths, revealing hidden terraces or steps only seasonally. This slow interplay between human creation and natural forces highlights the impermanence of all things, reinforcing a meditative perspective on history's unfolding. Artifacts discovered within these cities offer a gentle window into past lives. Pottery, tools, ornaments, and fragments of clothing speak to domestic life, craftsmanship, and trade networks that extended far beyond the city walls. Small details, the subtle curve of a vessel, the worn smoothness of a handrail, or the faded pigment of a mural, reveal the presence of human hands and daily routines. Explorers recorded these findings with careful attention, capturing not only the physical object but also the quiet narrative embedded within it. These artifacts, though often fragmented, form a mosaic of cultural memory, offering insights without the need for exhaustive interpretation, allowing the imagination to wander slowly along the paths of the past. Ritual spaces within forgotten cities often carry profound mystery. Beneath the surface of mountains, forests, and plains, there exist caves that have long preserved secrets both natural and human-made. These subterranean chambers, often cool and shadowed, carry a unique rhythm of sound and silence, a quiet echo that reverberates through time. Explorers have long been drawn to caves, intrigued by their duality, spaces of concealment and revelation, where light and darkness coexist, and where each step is accompanied by both wonder and reflection. The air itself seems to hold memory of dripping water, shifting stone, and the faint presence of those who ventured before. Caves, in their hushed and enclosed spaces, offer a meditative journey into the subtle intersections of nature, history, and mystery. Approaching a cave requires deliberate caution and mindful attention. The entrance is often concealed by vegetation, rock formations, or the gentle slope of the landscape. Early explorers noted the change in temperature, the subtle scent of mineral-rich air, and the soft shift in acoustics as they crossed from open terrain into shadowed recesses. Every footfall echoes differently depending on the contours of the cavern, producing a soundscape that is at once delicate and immersive. In these initial moments, explorers are reminded to slow their pace, attuning not only their vision but also their hearing, touch, and intuition to the subtle cues of the cave's interior. Within caves, natural formations captivate both imagination and observation. Stalactites hang from the ceiling like delicate chandeliers, while stalagmites rise gently from the floor, sometimes merging into slender columns. Mineral veins trace subtle patterns along walls, and small pools of water reflect dim light in soft, rippling patterns. The slow growth of these formations over centuries provides a tangible sense of time, reminding explorers of nature's patient rhythm. Observing these features encourages quiet reflection, allowing one to feel connected to processes far larger and slower than human lifespans. The caves become spaces of contemplation, where the mind drifts alongside the gradual unfolding of geological history. Many caves also preserve traces of ancient human activity. Prehistoric paintings, carvings, and tools speak of early explorers who sought shelter, spiritual insight, or creative expression within these darkened spaces. Each mark on the stone is a delicate bridge across time, inviting quiet curiosity rather than urgent interpretation. Explorers carefully recorded these features, noting pigment composition, location, and orientation, while allowing the art and artifacts to speak in their own subtle way. These human traces, often intertwined with natural formations, create a layered narrative where creativity and survival coexist in harmony with the cave's enduring presence. Caves often hold subtle mysteries that inspire reflection. Hidden chambers may contain unexplored passages, unusual mineral formations, or signs of lost rituals. Occasionally, explorers discover skeletal remains, ceremonial objects, or evidence of early habitation, preserved by the cool, stable environment. These findings are not announced with urgency but instead documented with attentive care, preserving both their factual detail and the gentle sense of wonder they evoke. The contrast between the visible and the concealed encourages a meditative state, inviting listeners to drift through the echoing chambers of history and imagination simultaneously. The sensory experience of caves is both vivid and understated. The cool air brushes softly against skin, carrying faint mineral scents and the subtle rhythm of dripping water. Shadows shift with the explorer's movements, revealing new textures and shapes in stone, while echoes transform even the quietest sounds into immersive reverberations. Small creatures, bats, insects, or subterranean fish, move quietly, contributing to the sense of life persisting in hidden places. This delicate interplay of light, sound, and movement forms a gentle rhythm that guides attention inward, fostering calm observation and reflective thought. Rivers and streams running through caves add a dynamic element to their quiet stability. The soft murmur of flowing water creates a natural meditation, carrying sediments, minerals, and occasionally artifacts along its path. Explorers follow these waterways with careful steps, noting their influence on both the cave's formation and the lives of those who may have once lived nearby. Pools reflect ceilings adorned with stalactites, creating mirrored images that amplify the sense of depth and space. The interplay between stillness and motion, sound and silence, deepens the contemplative atmosphere, drawing both explorers and listeners into a gently immersive experience. Some caves contain unusual geological or archaeological phenomena that heighten their sense of mystery. Crystal formations, natural acoustics, and rare fossil deposits speak to processes that unfolded over millennia. Human-made features, such as inscriptions, altars, or hidden chambers, suggest ritualistic, symbolic, or practical uses now largely obscured by time. These anomalies are often encountered gradually, discovered through careful observation rather than rushed exploration. The gentle unveiling of mysteries allows for sustained curiosity and reflective imagination, keeping the mind engaged without urgency or disruption. Seasonal and environmental changes subtly transform cave interiors. Water levels may rise with rainfall, altering passageways and revealing previously hidden pools. Mineral deposition continues slowly, changing the shape and texture of walls and floors over decades. Temperature shifts influence air movement, creating gentle currents that carry sounds or scents throughout the chambers. Observing these shifts encourages mindfulness, revealing the interconnectedness of time, climate, and human or natural history. Caves, in this sense, are living archives, preserving patterns that unfold both slowly and continuously, rewarding attentive observation with quiet insight. The symbolic and spiritual significance of caves adds another layer to their narrative. Beyond the boundaries of land, where oceans stretch endlessly and horizons blur into mist, lie waters that have long concealed mysteries of human endeavor. Among these vast expanses, ships, both real and imagined, have drifted, leaving traces of exploration, trade, and sometimes tragedy, quietly preserved beneath waves and currents. These forgotten vessels carry stories of human ambition and error, courage and misfortune, their silent presence inviting reflection rather than fear. For explorers who study maritime history, these waters offer a gentle rhythm of narrative, where movement is slow and discovery unfolds gradually, like the soft swell of a tide guiding the mind along hidden paths. Early maritime explorers approached these waters with a mixture of caution and wonder. Maps were incomplete, and the sea's surface often betrayed little of what lay beneath. Currents shifted subtly, weather could change within hours, and unseen reefs and shoals demanded careful navigation. Yet within these challenges lay an alluring serenity. The steady, predictable pulse of tides, the soft lapping of waves against hulls, and the glint of sunlight on rippling surfaces created a meditative cadence. Every maneuver, every adjustment, required awareness and patience, echoing the slow rhythms of discovery that guided explorers on both water and land. Shipwrecks scattered across oceans offer tangible, haunting glimpses of forgotten history. Wooden hulls, corroded metal, and scattered cargo tell stories of trade, migration, and conflict, yet much remains concealed beneath layers of silt and time. Some vessels are found near treacherous shoals, where navigational error or sudden storms led to gentle, tragic stillness. Others lie in deep waters, preserved by cold currents or minimal oxygen, as if holding their secrets carefully in suspension. Explorers and maritime archaeologists approach these sites with reverence, documenting the remnants and interpreting them slowly, mindful of both their fragility and the quiet narratives they embody. The contents of these sunken ships reveal traces of daily life and human endeavor. Cargo can include ceramics, textiles, coins, or personal belongings, each item a fragment of the larger story. Small details, a worn handle, a faded emblem, or a broken vessel, suggest routines and travels, offering intimate glimpses into lives long past. Explorers carefully record and study these artifacts, allowing each object to speak softly rather than attempting to reconstruct an entire narrative immediately. The process of discovery becomes a meditation on human activity, patience, and the passage of time, encouraging listeners to drift gently through the layered stories embedded in the ocean floor. Ocean currents play a subtle but crucial role in shaping the fate of ships and their stories. Strong currents can scatter debris across vast distances, while gentle eddies may cradle wrecks in relative stillness for centuries. Salt water, waves, and biological activity slowly transform the materials, erasing certain details while preserving others. Observing these patterns, explorers and historians recognize the interplay between environment and human creation, a delicate balance where nature both conceals and reveals. Listeners are invited to imagine the quiet, persistent movements beneath the waves, guiding artifacts and stories along pathways shaped by both chance and natural rhythm. Some waters are known for unusual phenomena that heighten the sense of mystery surrounding sunken vessels. Fog may roll in silently, obscuring distant horizons, or bioluminescent organisms may flicker beneath the surface, creating an ethereal glow. Occasionally, explorers encounter structures or natural formations that suggest submerged cities, reefs, or even ancient riverbeds now claimed by the sea. These discoveries evoke quiet speculation rather than certainty, encouraging gentle curiosity. The contrast between the visible and the hidden, the known and the speculative, mirrors the rhythm of maritime exploration itself, a slow dance between observation and imagination. Historical records often accompany the study of forgotten ships, providing soft context to the physical evidence. Logs, maps, letters, and trade documents offer clues to origins, routes, and the intentions of those who sailed. Yet these records are often incomplete or ambiguous, leaving space for reflective interpretation. Explorers piece together narratives with care, balancing factual evidence with gentle hypothesis, mindful of the distinction between certainty and conjecture. Listeners are drawn into this process, experiencing the meditative rhythm of uncovering history through both tangible remains and the quiet traces of human intention. Ship design itself tells subtle stories of technology, culture, and adaptation. Hull construction, sail patterns, and cargo arrangements reflect regional practices, available materials, and intended function. Explorers examining these features note the ingenuity required to traverse oceans with limited knowledge of currents, wind patterns, and hazards. Each vessel is a testament to human creativity, persistence, and ambition, preserved in the gentle decay of wood and metal. Observing these details encourages quiet reflection on the interplay between human endeavor and the vast, often unpredictable, maritime environment. Natural and human forces together shape the narratives of these lost vessels. Storms, tides, and collisions may seal a ship's fate, while human error, conflict, or disease contributes to its story. Yet even in apparent tragedy, there is a quiet continuity. Materials decompose slowly, ecosystems form around submerged structures, and the ocean itself preserves memory in sediment and form. Explorers approach these intersections of history and nature with care, emphasizing observation and reflection over sensationalism. The gentle rhythm of discovery fosters a sense of connection across time, encouraging listeners to drift through the layered stories carried by the sea. Exploration of these waters also involves technological patience and precision.
Throughout history, across deserts, mountains, rivers, and oceans, certain stories have endured, whispered from generation to generation, lingering long after the landscapes and civilizations that inspired them have changed. These are the legends that refuse to fade, not because they are fully understood, but because they resonate deeply with human imagination, curiosity, and a subtle longing for connection across time. Explorers and historians often encounter these narratives as they study ruins, uncover artifacts, or trace the paths of forgotten travelers, noticing how the stories persist even when evidence is scarce. Legends occupy the delicate space between fact and mystery, offering listeners a gentle bridge into worlds where the line between known and unknown softens, and the imagination drifts effortlessly in reflection. Many legends arise from human encounters with the unknown. Travelers who journeyed into deserts, crossed high peaks, or sailed uncharted waters often experience phenomena they could not fully explain. Shimmering lights across dunes, sudden fogs in mountain passes, or inexplicable sounds over quiet oceans became the basis of stories passed down through generations. These tales were not intended to terrify, but to inspire caution, wonder, and reverence. The subtle tension between observation and imagination, between what was seen and what was sensed, created narratives that lingered in the collective memory. For listeners, these stories provide a calming rhythm, a meditation on the mysterious while remaining grounded in human experience. Legends also emerge from the remarkable achievements of civilizations now lost to time. Forgotten cities, with their complex streets, ceremonial spaces, and artifacts, spark curiosity about the people who once thrived there. Oral histories of vanished kingdoms, secret chambers, or hidden treasures offer echoes of cultural ingenuity and resilience. Even as centuries pass, these stories retain their quiet power, reminding us of the continuity of human endeavor across generations. Explorers often record both the tangible evidence and the accompanying narratives, preserving a layered understanding that blends historical fact with reflective imagination. Listeners can drift gently through these tales, feeling the pulse of human creativity and endurance resonating softly across time. Natural landscapes also contribute to enduring legends. Deserts with their shifting sands, mountains with their hidden valleys, rivers with their meandering courses, and oceans with their submerged mysteries all provide the stage for stories that blend wonder and reflection. Certain features, a lone tree on a dune, a hidden glacial lake, or a rock formation resembling a figure, become focal points of myth. Over time, the combination of natural beauty, human curiosity, and subtle inexplicable events gives rise to stories that survive long after their original context has faded. These narratives are often gentle rather than alarming, offering quiet fascination and a sense of continuity with both nature and history. Cultural practices often reinforce and preserve legends. Rituals, songs, carvings, and storytelling pass down memories of both real and imagined events. Explorers encountering these practices note how they provide subtle insight into the values, fears, and hopes of communities long ago. Legends, though sometimes rooted in specific incidents or locations, transcend the immediate context, resonating with universal themes of courage, curiosity, perseverance, and wonder. Listeners are invited to experience these stories not as rigid accounts, but as soft reflections, their cadence and imagery guiding the mind into a calm state where history and imagination merge. Many legends resist simple explanation. Tales of invisible travelers, mysterious lights in deep forests, or ships that appear and vanish on misty waters evoke curiosity without demanding immediate answers. Explorers and historians approach these stories with gentle curiosity, recording details while acknowledging the limits of observation and understanding. The beauty of such legends lies not in verification, but in the space they create for imagination to wander. In this way, legends function as bridges between the known and the unknown, offering both historical context and meditative opportunity for reflection. The endurance of legends is also tied to human fascination with continuity. Stories that recur across generations, even when details shift, suggest underlying patterns of human experience and perception. Certain archetypes, wise travelers, hidden treasures, vanished civilizations, reappear in multiple contexts, subtly connecting cultures across time and space. Explorers note these resonances carefully, recognizing the ways in which human imagination interacts with landscape, environment, and history to create narratives that persist. For listeners, these recurrent motifs offer both comfort and curiosity, a gentle sense of connection to something enduring and meaningful. Legends often intertwine with tangible discoveries, reinforcing their presence in historical consciousness. An ancient artifact, a hidden chamber, or a forgotten city can breathe life into a story, confirming fragments while leaving other elements mysterious. This interplay between evidence and imagination sustains the quiet allure of legends. Explorers document these intersections with care, weaving narratives that balance factual observation with a reflective space that allows listeners' minds to drift softly between reality and wonder. In doing so, the legends themselves become a form of gentle meditation, guiding attention without urgency. Time and memory further shape the persistence of legends. Even as landscapes change, deserts shift, rivers alter course, mountains erode, stories adapt, subtly reshaped by each retelling. Legends are resilient, not because they are static, but because they are living, evolving narratives that continue to resonate with human perception. Observing this process, explorers gain insight not only into history, but also into the enduring nature of narrative itself. Listeners, in turn, can drift through these evolving stories, appreciating the quiet continuity that allows curiosity to remain alive across centuries. Legends that refuse to fade often carry lessons or reflections that extend beyond their immediate context. They may speak of human resilience in the face of natural forces, the importance of careful observation, or the enduring value of imagination. Explorers frequently highlight these subtle themes, allowing the narrative to move gently from description to reflection. In this way, legends serve both as historical artifacts and meditative guides, helping listeners engage with history in a manner that soothes and intrigues simultaneously. The stories are neither hurried nor forceful. They unfold with a gentle cadence, like soft echoes from the past. As night falls across deserts, mountains, rivers, and oceans, gentle silence settles over the landscapes we have traversed. Stars emerge, scattered across the sky like tiny lanterns, each one a distant witness to the passage of time and the subtle rhythms of history. Beneath this quiet canopy, it becomes possible to reflect on the journeys we have taken through forgotten cities, frozen peaks, subterranean caves, and waters that conceal lost ships. The vastness of the night sky mirrors the expanses we have explored, inviting a meditative pause to consider both what has been discovered and what remains unknown. In this soft, reflective space, the mind drifts naturally, balancing curiosity with calm and imagination with observation. Night often brings clarity in its stillness. The patterns of stars provide a gentle order, a framework for reflection that complements the journeys across earth and water. Explorers have long used the constellations for guidance, finding both literal direction and symbolic meaning in the heavens. The slow turning of the night sky reminds us of cycles that extend far beyond human life, linking the ephemeral with the eternal. As listeners imagine the soft glow of starlight over ancient ruins or frozen peaks, the reflective quality of these landscapes becomes even more pronounced, highlighting the quiet persistence of both nature and human endeavor. Looking back over the journeys through forgotten cities, one notices the subtle interplay between human activity and natural reclamation. Streets once alive with trade now lie silent under the embrace of vegetation. Terraces and walls hint at ingenuity and social structure, even as sand, moss, and roots slowly reclaim them. There's a profound sense of continuity in these spaces. The lives of those who came before are not erased, but softened, woven into the rhythms of the present. Listeners are invited to drift through these reflections, as if walking slowly through empty plazas, hearing the echo of footsteps from centuries past, and feeling the quiet pulse of enduring human presence. Similarly, rivers and frozen peaks reveal patterns of persistence and change. Water flows steadily, shaping landscapes and connecting civilizations, while glaciers carve stone over millennia, preserving both natural and human histories in ice. The sensory qualities of these environments, the shimmer of light on rippling water, the soft crunch of snow underfoot, the whisper of wind across icy ridges, invite a calm attentiveness. These rhythms encourage reflection on the interplay of endurance, adaptation, and the gentle unfolding of time. In both rivers and mountains, history is not only recorded in material traces, but also felt in the subtle cadences of nature itself. Subterranean caves, with their eternal echoes and delicate formations, offer another layer of insight. Stalactites and stalagmites grow imperceptibly, marking time more slowly than human perception can follow. Ancient carvings and hidden chambers testify to human curiosity and creativity, preserved in an environment that emphasizes stillness and careful observation. As we reflect beneath the stars, these hidden spaces remind us of the value of patience and attentiveness, and of the quiet reward that comes from observing carefully and imagining gently. The caves teach us that some stories are revealed gradually, and their mysteries are best approached with calm reverence. Oceans, too, provide a reflective space. Ships adrift in forgotten waters tell stories of ambition, courage, and misfortune, their remains preserved by tides and currents. Beneath the waves, life and memory continue quietly, interacting in a slow, enduring rhythm. Observing these submerged histories encourages a perspective that blends wonder with respect, curiosity with patience. In the same way that stars offer direction, the soft pulse of oceanic movement offers a rhythm of reflection, inviting listeners to drift along both literal and metaphorical currents of history. Legends that refuse to fade bind all these landscapes together. They persist not because they are fully known or verifiable, but because they resonate with human experience, imagination, and memory. Myths, oral histories, and stories tied to specific places create continuity across time and space, linking deserts to rivers, mountains to caves, and seas to ancient cities. These narratives encourage reflective engagement, allowing listeners to explore the liminal spaces between fact and speculation, between the known and the unknowable. Beneath the stars, the enduring power of legend reminds us of our deep connection to both place and story, and of the gentle persistence of human curiosity. Reflection beneath the night sky also emphasizes the interconnectedness of all journeys. Each river, cave, city, mountain, and ocean explored contributes to a larger tapestry of human and natural history. Patterns emerge. The resilience of civilizations, the quiet shaping of landscapes by water, ice, and wind, and the persistent presence of memory and imagination. These connections reveal not only individual narratives, but also a broader, meditative story of the world itself.